So is that something you'd like to see reintroduced into the online ecosystem for poker? Better rewards for the grinders like that?
I think better rewards would go a long way in bringing back the old environment that was more beatable for players. Now you have the players that win and you have the players that lose. And the players that win, like, okay, they're winning, it's fine. But like the players that lose, they're never coming back because they're not incentivized to.
Welcome, everybody, to Behind the Shuffle, Episode 3. I'm your host, Dave Schwartz, alongside poker industry legend, Warren Dabowski. Warren, we had so much fun with Jamie, we decided to make that its own show, so we're going to have that podcast as well, and then we're going to do this one, call it Episode 3, and we've got another guest, and this is Soheb Porbandarwala. He's a very accomplished online gaming poker player and live poker player as well, a WPT champion. He's got a lot of history with online gaming and live poker. So we're going to talk to him about some of the same things we talked to Jamie about to sort of get his perspective on the online gaming landscape, so to speak. Looking forward to talking to him.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear some of the things that he has to say, and I'm sure he's going to share some really good insights with us, especially coming from that angle of someone who is both online and a live poker player and actively doing both, which so I think that's going to bring a whole new perspective. And I believe he's been around since the beginning boom of online poker as well. So
he's a dinosaur, like some of us have been around since the beginning. So. It'll be an interesting interview, and again, we're trying to sort of reinvent the online poker experience for players and what people look for and what can be done differently sort of as the industry evolves and as poker software evolves, because we're changing week to week, month to month here with technology, and it's going to have to react. The online poker experience is going to have to react to that changing landscape, and it's a challenge, for operators.
It is, and part of it is, if you want to reimagine or reinvent online poker or poker in general, is talking to the players and finding out what it is that, from their perspective, what's missing, what's great, what's working, what's not working.
And to be nimble, right? Like the online site now has to be nimble. It has to be able to change with the environment. It can't just be this static sort of monolith. You must come and play in this format, because that's not going to cut it in the future.
Yeah, and I think too, like our previous guest was saying, to leading into some of what you can do online with the technology is important, right? Yeah. So not sort of restricting yourself to just what works in live.
Yeah, and Jamie had some great perspectives on that. So if you're interested at all, head back. This is episode 3. Head back to episode 2 and listen to what Jamie Staples had to say, because he's got a wealth of experience and knows what he's talking about for sure. Episode 1, if you haven't heard it, we had an interview with Victoria Lifshitz where we talked about some of the challenges in the online poker experience right now, as far as security, real-time assistance, all the different things that nefarious characters can be up to, and how we can stop that, and how online sites react to that in real time. So that's episode 1 if you want to head back and listen to that. Now we're going to bring in our guest for the show. And here is our guest. This is Soheb Porbandarwala, a very accomplished online live player. Soheb, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
We've been talking a lot, Soheb, about online poker and how to re-envision the experience for players online poker. We're going to get your perspective on that. But first, give us sort of an intro into how you got into poker, what your experience has been. Do you play live? Do you play online? Give us the full run. Well, maybe not the full
origin story.
Give us the
origin story.
The origin story is not a unique one, honestly. Like I started playing during the poker boom in the mid 2000s. Probably played my first poker hand in like late 2003 or early 2004. When the Chris Moneymaker episodes of the World Series main event were on ESPN.
Yeah.
So my uncle would watch on TV, and then him and my other uncle started playing poker on nights where we would all get together.
So was this for money? Was
live.
this as like nephew playing uncles for cash, or was it fun?
So I was the first born child of my generation. So they were only like 10, 12 years older than me. So they were in their mid 20s and I was 13,
Okay.
14. But like I've like they're like, some of my best friends even still. Like we grew up together basically. Um, but part of that growing up was poker, actually, because the first site I remember playing on is Party Poker on their accounts. I would play sit and goes. They'd be playing 9-man sit and goes, and like some would pay cash, and then there were these things called step satellites. I think Party Poker might have been one of the first to introduce step satellites. Maybe it was like one of the sites before it, maybe Absolute Poker, but I think Party Poker was the first one to really run with the steps, where you could win a 9-man into a bigger tournament, and then eventually you would win a ticket into the World Series of Poker, which was on ESPN. So it was basically your ticket to get to ESPN. And you know how they had or how they have sports betting advertisements everywhere now. That used to be poker. Back in the day, there was just advertisements for Full Tilt and Poker Stars, and it was inescapable, like sports betting is now.
So your origin was online. That's your gateway to poker, right?
Yeah, so I was 14, but the environment back then in online poker was very chill. I think I even had an account that it might have been in my dad's name, but I'm pretty sure it was under my name, even when I was 14 or 15. They never asked for ID, and there was peer-to-peer transfers. So when I did start playing for real money, there was so little scrutiny. I was able to like transfer money to my uncles to withdraw. So that's how I started playing. It was very easy to get into real money poker back then.
And that was your gateway. So you're playing
Yeah.
online poker for many number of years because you can't get into a casino at that age, obviously.
Yeah.
Although you might have, I'm guessing, maybe snuck in to a casino here and there back in the day before the scrutiny of COVID and different things happened where you
Not
could
when I
play.
was 14 or 15, but yeah, when I was 18, 19.
Sure, yeah.
I went to Yukon, which was about 40 minutes from Mohegan and 50 minutes to an hour from Foxwoods. So the ease of access was right there, if I didn't want to play online. And obviously, a couple years into college, Black Friday happened, so that was when I pivoted more to live a little bit.
How was your experience on Black Friday? Did you have a lot of money tied up, and what was happening there for you?
Actually, and what was great was the money that I did have tied up. It was on Poker Stars, and that was released much sooner than the money on Full Tilt Poker. Full Tilt Poker was insolvent when was mostly insolvent when Black Friday happened, and they had not separated player funds from operating funds, so they were like $300 million short of player funds, and luckily none of those hundreds of millions of dollars were mine.
Right.
So my experience with Black Friday was sadness, but like it was financially not like it didn't set me back financially.
So that was the catalyst for you to sort of lean into live poker for a bit, but now it sounds like you've since then gotten back into online, and now is it fair to say you play both online and live?
I would lean towards playing live. I would call myself a live pro these days. Not so much online. There's not such great options online, and that's not to say I don't play online. But like, if someone were to ask me where should I play online, I wouldn't feel comfortable leading them to like one site or another.
So talk about that. What is it that specifically leads you to not want to recommend somebody to play online? What are some of the issues that you would be worried about for that person?
I think the environment is just kind of like the Wild West right now. Like, there's a lot of options, but very few good ones or even like acceptable ones. Like, people ask me all the time where I would recommend they play, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend they play where I play. Like, I would say go play live unless you live in one of the few states with regulated online poker, which is only like 5 or 6 states in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
There's Nevada, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Michigan, and I think that like Delaware and West Virginia have some sort of online poker as well. But the last two are small, and the others, like there's very few players from there, and now they kind of have interstate where they share share their players now, except for Nevada. But like Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, like if you live in these states, it's great. But otherwise, even these are not without fault. But like these are the ones that I would recommend playing on if you can.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad we
I live
touched
in
on that.
Connecticut. It's very close to Jersey. I drive to Jersey on some weekends when they have bigger tournaments. But it's kind of a hassle where like I can sports bet in Connecticut. I can play on FanDuel, which is now partnered with Poker Stars, but there is no Poker Stars option or any option for regulated online poker in Connecticut, despite it being legal. They have the opportunity, but I guess they don't really care about it so much.
When you say Wild West, do you have some firsthand experience? Do you understand some of the things that happen? You said you play, I'm guessing, on some clubs and some different things, like club sites like that.
Yeah, I have my experience as a player on these sites, right? Like the rake is higher. There's no real reward system. I mean, like because the rake is higher, they can give you more rake back, and they do. But even with that rake back, the rake is still higher with against regulated sites, right? So for Americans, it just doesn't leave good options.
And then security. Are you worried about security on those sites? Give us sort of a take. Is it just sort of, the games are really good, the rake is quite high, and there's some security issues, but the games are quite good. So I'm going to accept that as part of the experience.
Unfortunately, like I can accept it because like not to brag, but I still am an overall winner in these games that I choose to play in, but I still have to be selective. Like I can't just play in any open game, and like expect to win money because these sites are so like parasitic and like they just take and they give nothing back. There was a time where if you were one of the biggest grinders online, you had money coming back to you through rake back programs like back in the day, like Supernova Elite and stuff on Poker Stars, right? Like that you guys might be familiar with.
Oh yeah.
But like if your listeners, I don't know like what your demographic for listeners is going to look like here, but I feel like Supernova Elite is a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was, but it was worth over $100,000 to become a Supernova Elite, and it wasn't easy to do. But like maybe like 100 people did it a year. I'm not even sure what the number is, but like people were able to do it, and like even if they lost $40,000 or $50,000 in the games that they were playing, maybe it was like it would have to be cash or like high stakes sit and goes. Like you couldn't really do it in tournaments. But like if you were playing cash, you could lose $40,000 or $50,000 before your rakeback incentives and still have like a decent year and like survive. So, and that was great for the players that were winning because then you had losing players who were still incentivized to win, and now you don't have that anymore.
So, is that something you'd like to see reintroduced into the online ecosystem for poker? The better rewards for the grinders like that?
I think better rewards would go a long way in bringing back the old environment that was more beatable for players. Whereas now you have the players that win and you have the players that lose. And the players that win, like, okay, they're winning, it's fine. But like the players that lose, they're never coming back because they're not incentivized to. And they've also smartened up, where they know it's like not only are the players better, but there's also this technology that can make the games unfair. Like the growing use of AI in the game is detrimental to online poker, and we kind of did it to ourselves. Like we let it happen. Like these companies might be short-sighted in terms of profit, but poker players are very much the same, I would say, by and large, right? There's no cooperation or unity between poker players to implement change. And this short-sightedness has created this environment where these sites can take advantage of us and just take more while giving back so little.
All right, we're building Soheb's online poker site. I want you to kind of put your mind in the space of an operator and take all the experience that you've had throughout your life and try and tell us or talk to the audience, talk to the industry about some of the things that you would do if you were building a site from scratch. So some of the issues we've talked about with player rewards and security, like what, the lobby, the interface, the rewards for grinders. What are some of the things that you would do, Soheb, to make the online gaming experience better for people?
So first of all, I would probably not be the right person to lead such an effort because my work ethic leaves a lot to be desired. So I would surround myself with people that work harder than me, and but people that share a love of the game that I do, that like feel like poker is like its own like living, breathing organism that like has a heartbeat, that like like that you want to succeed, that you want to see like grow, instead of just. So the first thing I would say is I would want, and I don't know how realistic this is, but like I would want a privately owned poker site, not one that's beholden to shareholders, but to its players. And it's not like we're reinventing the wheel here, right? Like PokerStars used to be privately owned. Full Tilt used to be privately owned before they weren't, right? This is why they were operating in the U.S. Till 2011, because the UIGA was in 2006, and that's when Party Poker left the market, right? I think if I'm pretty good with poker history in general, but like
I think you're right.
No, you're right.
2006, and Party Poker had these grand plans of coming back to the U.S. market legally. And I think they did come back before PokerStars did, right? In like 2013, when they started the regulated sites, I think Party Poker was the first to come back. Whereas Stars, even though they had done a lot to make like Full Tilt players hold, they were not allowed back as soon as Party Poker was, because Party like left of their own volition when they were told to in 2006. So these private. So they were publicly traded, so they had to answer to shareholders that like, yeah, we're not operating illegally in the U.S., whereas Full Tilt and Stars continued to operate in these gray areas because they were privately owned. So the first thing I would want is a privately owned company. That's not, that's their responsibility is more to their players than it is to people looking for to maximize profits. And like instead I would want to maximize longevity of my site, like a casino would, or like casinos used to, I guess.
Well, and PokerStars is an excellent example of that, because the privately owned version of PokerStars with Isai loved poker. He was a poker player through and through, and you saw that back 100%. In the heyday of PokerStar, every decision that came through PokerStars came through Isai. He was a micromanager, but he loved poker. And the result of that, to your point about being privately owned by somebody like that, who was a gatekeeper for the community almost, made it an amazing site.
And when there was one site like that, the others had to live up to that instead of, they had to come up to that level instead of going down to the levels of their competitors now. Now, I feel bad even mentioning sites like that operate now, like Coin Poker and Phenom Poker and GG. Like these are parasitic sites, all of them. But still we play on them. Like up until last year, like whenever they stopped allowing like mass VPN use on GG, that was one of the main sites that I played on for tournaments. The only site, like again, like even like sites that are like charging like fair rate, like I wouldn't feel comfortable representing. Like ACR has like low rate, but like who the wants to show for ACR? Well, I'll tell you, a lot of people do, obviously. Like I have some.
Well, if they're getting paid, yeah, sure.
Yeah, but there's I don't know if you guys have seen the news about Coin Poker recently, and like how shady their ownership is, and like the practices that they're doing in the online poker space or online gaming space. Like this isn't like I feel bad for my friends that have their names tied to this, but like they're being paid for it, and like I just I mean. So sometimes it's like the same people that like show for all these sites that come up. Like you'll see the same 4 or 5 names, like the people with like poker agents, like suddenly shilling you a new site, just becoming the face of Coin Poker or Bovada or whatever like parasitic industry standard or parasitic site you want to mention. Like these are just people that are only interested in like squeezing out every dollar they can as fast as they can from people. Now there's no thoughts on longevity. Like they'll just move on to the next game.
to your point, you're reinventing this now, and you're going to have a long-term view. What sort of changes would you make to that model to make it more of a long-term view versus that short-term grab that some of the online sites do?
Well, when we're talking about PokerStars setting the gold standard back in the day, like PokerStars doesn't even live up to that standard now, right? So like the bar is in hell. Like you don't have to do much to like do better than these sites. It's just a matter of someone having the vision and like the funds, the means to do it, you know? But what I would be focused on these days is security first and foremost, because sites seem to just overlook security because it's kind of the same reason people might choose to cheat. It's like, well, everyone's doing it, so how can I even keep up if I don't do it? And then like, you know, like you'll do like morally questionable things. It's the same with these sites. Like they will let these morally questionable things slide because they think everyone's doing it. So like, what's the point? Like we won't have a clientele anymore unless we allow some things to slide, right? But I wouldn't let that shit slide, guys.
So
yeah, I mean, so obviously integrity is hugely important to both, you know, the operator integrity as well as the game integrity. And earlier you mentioned, you know, players kind of, you know, to some extent did it themselves, I think was what you're, you know, in some ways. And then what I thought was interesting there wasn't so much that sentiment, but that there's more players could do to sort of cooperate. And so I'd like to explore that just a little bit. And what could the player community do if they were willing to, if they weren't just, you know, it's easy to, everybody else is doing it, so I'm going to use RTAs and bots as well. If they weren't and they really wanted to enact change, you know, how would they do that, or what would that look like, do you think?
We've tried to unionize before, but not like really. Like it's just, you know, things fall apart like before you even take a real first step with stuff like this, right? Like it's really hard to get people that are like singularly focused on their bottom line, like thinking, you know, 5, 10, 15 years ahead, and like how the world's going to look if you allow stuff to keep happening, like this stuff to keep like getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
I think back when we had like 2+2 and pocket fives, like if those were still around now, it would be easier to kind of bring people together because everyone was on 2+2 back then. You make a thread and like you can, you know, get people to see like, here's what we're going to do. Like, we're not going to play on this day or that day. Or, like, we're going to have like a boycott on this day or that day to like show, you know, the operators that there is power in numbers, but we refuse to use it. These corporations feed off of our selfishness, like I said, because they like, if they know we'll still play when the product gets worse, like what incentives do they have to improve it? Right? Like what incentives do they have to lower rake if we're still paying the rake now?
Well, like, I think their incentive, sorry, I just want to quickly say, like, you know, their incentive is to build granted, I would definitely agree that nobody's doing it, but their incentive is to build that community long term, to be able to be a profitable company long term. Yes. Yeah, and not just sort of, to your point, grab the quick dollar and do whatever it takes to rake high, but to build a community. And I guess the problem there is the operator's sort of building a community, building an industry for everybody rather than just that one operator. So they're having this sort of dichotomy of, well, yes, we could lower rake and we could invest in the future, but guess what? That also invests in other online poker sites that are maybe doing that cash grab right now.
This also ties back to what Soheb was saying about regulated versus non-regulated. If I'm an operator in an unregulated space, let's say I'm a crypto, whatever, or I'm just blatantly operating in the black market in the United States, then I could be shut down any day. So those operators aren't that incentivized to worry about the long-term future. They literally are just there doing a cash grab. So again, for the players, there's a big advantage in even the mindset of the operator itself that's going to change and shift to more of that long-term longevity view in regulated markets. So I mean, we've all said it a million times, but it would be really nice if the U.S. would sort of push that along and regulate more states. That would improve things a lot.
And like if more states were regulated, more people would have skin in the game to speak up and like, you know, combine their powers in numbers. But like right now, it's 4 states, and there's really just no cohesion. There's just no like there's no like de facto leader of there's and like also like the biggest names in poker are also leeches and don't do we'll always just look at their bottom line rather than the longevity of the game because they've already kind of made it. They're already at the top. They're already some of the decision makers, right?
Sorry, I want to go back to the security part that you were talking about. And we've come through, and I'm an OG like yourself, played online for right since the beginning, and we've come through an era where transparency from the online site, and we talked about this with Jamie as well. It wasn't there. It was trust us, quote unquote. We have your best interests at heart, and we've seen time and time again through the industry where that wasn't the case, right? I mean, we're doing all we can to stop bots. Well, your site is a bot farm, so no, you're not doing that. But again, I think this goes back to the regulation versus unregulated sites. However, how transparent do we need to be going forward? Because the landscape for artificial intelligence, cheating, all the different things is changing so fast that is there any benefit, I think, now to the sites being non-transparent, being that trust us model, because that doesn't wash anymore, I don't think. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, man. Like if you log in on like a random Monday or Tuesday to play a tournament schedule, right? You're not going to see the numbers that you used to because the recreational money has mostly left these sites, especially these unregulated sites. And there's two levels to these unregulated sites, right? There's like the ACR and coin poker level, and then there's even more unregulated than that in the apps, which is run by players, right? So there's levels even to the unregulated stuff, where there is no benefit to them really showing like how bad things are because people are already so turned off to the idea of online poker right now, because of the rampant cheating and the rampant use of AI in these games. Which is not to say that cheating doesn't exist in live games. Obviously, there's some very high profile cases of cheating in live games as well. But in online, it's just always in the back of your head that like you might be getting cheated at all times. Like you're at a cash table, you're playing for a lot of money. Like you don't know if someone's running hands in real time on a solver, or like if someone's sharing cards with somebody in Hold'em or PLO. Like a lot of the games I play even online are PLO, and like that's always a fear. Is like people are seeing like 8 cards instead of 4. But I think it would be great to have more transparency, and I think all players agree. But like the players and operators are not on the same page here. It's
is that a solvable problem for the site? Is that lack of confidence that you think is prevalent? Is that a solvable problem for the sites?
I'm not so sure how solvable it is right now.
Here's an idea. Here's a question for you. This what if we tied back to something like the players union, like a poker players alliance, like there used to be back in the day, or whatever,
Right.
whatever you want to call it, a group of players, let's say some smart players who are interested in the integrity of the game. And if sites submitted hand histories, like selections of hand histories, tournaments and whatever, after the fact, obviously, but just exposed it all and said, here's like, I don't know, a week's worth of data, a month, whatever it happens to be, that specific tournament, and gave it to that group for an independent analysis that then went through it and literally analyzed it and mined it to see if does it look like this player was behaving differently because they could see 8 cards or whatever, and came back with feedback that's independent, not the site. Like so you're not relying. The site is basically just saying we're going to open the kimono and give this data to an independent body, and that body of players is going to analyze it and tell us whether cheating was rampant or was there a little bit, a lot, none. Like I wonder if that would work for establishing integrity.
It would certainly be better than what we have now. Right, like anything is better than what we have now. Like now, even if someone is caught cheating, you don't know who it is. Like you might see them gone from the player pool, and like that's the only way to tell. But like they don't make it public if someone is banned on any of these sites, on GG, even on these regulated sites. Like even if you report it, you might get like some nominal amount of money back if you report cheating, right?
And then there's no calculation. You just have $28 show up in your account.
Here's this money. Yeah, we split this money up 175,000 ways, and here's your $8, right? Like
Yeah.
And it's stupid. Yeah, there's no transparency whatsoever.
How about, and this is
It's
another
very
thing that
hard.
we've, in a previous guest, this is Victoria, we were talking about this with, having some kind of a trust rating attached to players online potentially. So new players are less trustworthy than experienced players who've been there for a long time. The site obviously has all the data, can come up with different ways to
So you rate
trust
a player.
and exactly. And players can even, players are going to be jerks and rate each other unfairly just because of a bad beat or whatever. But you can factor all of that in and give players some input into the process as well. And and over time, if I've seen Soheb at the tables for 1 week, I don't know anything. But if I've seen them for like 3 months or 6 months or a year, I mean, they can become a very trusted entity, and you could expose that to the other players as well, potentially.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept.
That would be something along like a KYC model, right? Like where you have to actually know who you're playing against. I think that can go a ways in helping, right? Like real names. People have mentioned like having people like have webcams on and stuff, but I just don't think it's realistic.
Nobody wants to play
these
with a
solutions are
webcam.
realistic, right?
Yeah, no, that's not one that's going to ever get any traction. I don't
Like
think.
I don't even want to be on camera for this web call. Like I wanted to like light up a joint, but like can't do that when you're playing on camera.
So we've identified security as maybe the most important issue right now for online sites going forward, transparency in that security. What other things do you think are important, Soheb, as far as the user experience goes? We talked to Jamie a little bit about sort of the new player, and to your point earlier about, well, we've really dried up the new players coming into online poker. How do we go find that? Obviously this is a question that everybody's trying to solve, but how do we get that new player? How do we get that Clash of Clans guy to come and play and deposit $100 and work towards some of the goals? Gamification of the experience that we've seen some of the sites try.
I think it would take an effort from people like FanDuel taking more interest in poker. But to the new player now looks a lot different than the new player back then, right? Like the new player back then would see things on ESPN, they would see advertisements. WPT would be on like the Game Show Network, or like poker was very like mainstream. So like the new players were coming in like because they wanted to try like what they're seeing on ESPN, right? And like now it's you don't really have that focus on online poker. Like there's people coming in from like other games like chess and like some online gaming because there's just more money in poker. So the people that are coming in now look a lot different than than back then. But to get new players now, I think there does need to be like a shift in how things operate, unfortunately. Like it's because we've come down this road for a few years, and the writing was on the wall a few years ago as to like how detrimental these practices were going to be down the line, like this the increase in rake, the less rake back, and like other incentives to keep you playing more. Like now what incentive do you have to keep like a high stakes pool going when you're giving a lot more to play against the whales, and then like the whales aren't even getting anything in return, really? Like they're just like losing their money, and then like that's it, they're done. Like there's no quality to the incentives that are being given out. And like even sites like the regulated sites that have like slightly better um incentives, right? Like if you play on like BetMGM or Party Poker, which that's I think that's the same thing, and then Poker Star or WSOP, you get points towards like your Caesars rewards or your MGM rewards. So like while I think they have like an actual comprehensive rakeback program as well. I'm not sure how good it is because I don't live in the state, but like like you could get free rooms if you go to their brick and mortar establishments, by playing it on these sites. You could get like your resort fees waived or whatever, but um for the most part, like especially with the unregulated sites, like you said, they have no real incentive to give you more than the minimum. And that's just not good enough for the recreational player to come back and like try their hand against people that have, you know, played millions of hands more than them. Like recreational players, like what, you know, while like we might rely on them to like make money, like these people are not stupid. They've made money elsewhere, like, and they see where they're losing money, you know, like they're not gonna like keep shooting themselves in the foot when like the entertainment value is not there. So like
Yeah.
if they're not incentivized to play, like if you know, like like say you lose a lot of money on like FanDuel or DraftKings, you know, like they'll send you to games, they'll give you like boxes at, you know, at like your favorite team's stadium and stuff. Like there's nothing like that for poker. Like they're not gonna put like the biggest loser on like the Poker Stars big game with like celebrity players like Gronk and, you know, Kevin Hart, you know, like it would be cool to like have that possibility, but no, yeah,
I think
that's just like
super.
one
Yeah.
thing, but you know,
No, it's very interesting, and it is something that is missing, and it is an advantage. You know, that some of those brands, the omni-channel brands, have, where they can, you know, you can earn rewards points, get tangible benefits. I think that is I mean, it is like a really interesting idea
right? I
of
just came up with that. That was like
right.
off the top of the head.
It's really
Imagine
good.
if you
That's
guys gave me like
yeah,
a chance to like come up with more ideas. Imagine if someone like hired me
absolutely.
and was like, "Hey,
Yeah,
help us." Probably
we
come up
can't
with like two
afford
more
you.
ideas.
I've seen your results in online and live poker, so you're out of our price range, I'm afraid.
Do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, I mean, it is a super interesting idea, finding ways to reward. And this is kind of, there's two things in there that maybe just comment on a little bit. But one is finding ways to reward players who are, even though they're losing players, they're still getting tangible rewards. They're still getting benefits and a reason to play, like your FanDuel example of they still got tickets to the game. They got some reward like that. I think absolutely needs to be more of that in poker from the operators. And then the other is just, you know, the same with that rake structure and rewards you're talking about with a high stakes game. If your low stakes rake structure is built in such a way that the game is not beatable, even though the low stakes player, the newbie, isn't going to understand why this game is no fun, they're just going to get out there and it's, you know, they're going to play for however long and not understand why they can't win. Whereas if the rake structure is just built a little more fair and a little more optimally, they'll at least play for longer. So it's one of the things, as long as they're not sort of getting in over their head and playing at too high a limit, poker takes a while to lose your money. So you can still have an experience and a
That's
rewarding experience and learn as you're going, right?
that's the people they're taking advantage of the most, though, is the low stakes players. That's where the rake is the most unbeatable, not just online but live as well. And it's gotten like worse and worse, you know, especially live, but but
So
online
can
as
I
well.
interrupt you quickly there, so because I
Yeah.
understand why they do it live. They have very fixed costs. They have dealers. They have floormen. They have real estate. They have electricity. It should be the opposite for online poker for me. Like when you're having low stakes players, that should be the smallest rake. That should give you want to build that ground base of players where they can survive without being raked to death, and they can move up the ladders, and maybe your rate goes up a little bit more as you move up the ladder. But you want to start off
Sure,
almost
yeah.
in a no rake environment.
So you guys know like the WSOP live and like all these events live, they have very high rate, right?
Sure.
And they have, you know, costs to cover and stuff. But like a $400 tournament like a few years ago used to be like a 360 plus 40 or like 350 plus 50, right? But now like it'll be like a 330 plus 70 or like even worse in some places. So, like some of these card rooms in Texas, like they had a 300 here this weekend that I didn't go play it, but because well, one, the rake is absurd. Like I would feel like trash supporting this room, but it was a 235 plus 65, right? Like
It's like
it should be illegal.
30%
Like
rake.
these people should be arrested or like, you know, publicly ridiculed for even like offering this to their like most loyal players who are like the low stakes players that like that, you know, fill up their 1-2 card games, their 2-5 card games where they're making the most money, and then they are absolutely raking the shit out of them in these tournaments. It's really unfair and it's unjustified, but it's easy to fix too. You just make the buy-in higher if you want to rake that amount, right? Make it a 600, make it a 540 plus 535 plus 65 instead of a 235 plus 65. But like the people aren't demanding this, and when someone mentions that the buy-ins need to be higher to um, you know, to make up for the higher rate. the low stakes players get mad because they're like, oh, like you have all this money, that's why you're saying this. But no, it's for the betterment of, everybody. Like it's the more money that the house keeps, the less we keep, right? And it's not just like the pros, that goes for the Rex as well. It's beneficial to everybody, for buy-ins to go up if the rake is going to be high anyways. But
that's that long-term vision we were talking about earlier, right? Having a long-term vision rather than a short term. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so it's, like to have longevity in poker in general, you have to, be creative, I think, and like have a love for the game, but also to have longevity in running an establishment, I think you should have that same love for the game. And I think that's kind of gone now. I think it's just like all like max profit. People who are just in it for max profit, unfortunately. And then like sometimes a room will come along, that maybe that is like run by players and doesn't want to do things like the way they've been done, right? And then like the government will come and shut that down too, much like there's a lot of parallels between how like, Black Friday happened and like how they shut down the lodge of like a month ago, for the same reasons, like money laundering and
bunch of made up stuff.
Yeah, like just a bunch of like stuff, and they're just like throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks, Like I was at the lodge actually the day before they got raided. I was there to play a tournament, and some people like that cashed for more than me in the tournament haven't been paid yet because the government is holding on to all that money. For no reason. Like these people should have been paid by now, like everyone with any money at the lodge. Like I accidentally left with some chips from the lodge, but I was like, what does it matter? I'll just cash them in next time. You never expect the place to be raided the next day, So.
Yeah, it's an issue going forward for sure, and the regulated aspect of it needs to be more transparent, I think.
It is. I mean, we hear it, and this is just a good reminder that it would all be safer and more stable for the players if they would just regulate this stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, for sure. Soheb, thanks so much for a lot of your insights. I want to point people to we kept sort of this narrow interview a bit narrow for you to lean on some of your expertise and some of your experience throughout your life. But for some different types of interviews that you've done, I want to point people to Andrew Brokos's great podcast, Thinking Poker, that you did, and also to the Chip Race with Dara and David Lappin, fantastic podcast.
I've been everywhere recently.
Yeah, but I want people to go listen to those because you have some great stories, some great insights, some strategy stuff that I listened to, and I really enjoyed it. I listened to both of those podcasts. Yeah, really appreciate that stuff. So thanks so much for your time today, and I hope to have you back soon.
Yeah, it was really, really good to meet you.
Yeah, of course. Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Some really interesting stuff there from Soheb. He's got a wealth of experience in here's a guy who started playing when he was young. He talked about playing with his uncles and playing online and playing on their accounts when maybe he shouldn't have been, but I think we all did that back in the day, to finding live poker and, going out there in playing on, unregulated sites and understanding the risks and different things that players are taking now and what we can do to improve online gaming. Really interesting stuff.
I think that took a really interesting turn and almost a deep dive into some of the issues that, it became really sort of obvious to me how jaded in a way some of the poker world players are getting in the US in particular, in the unregulated states, because of what they have access to. And they can't even access the good gray market sites anymore, because those guys don't want to do business in the US because they might want to regulate one day and come in and be a regulated operator. So the quality or integrity of the sites that they have available to them is, I think, feeding a lot of the perception and issues and trust issues in particular that players have with online poker in general. So it was really interesting. It definitely took a dive in that direction, but it was some very valuable insight in that.
I think the biggest thing for me out of the Soheb interview was the real focus that needs to be on the long-term ecology of the online game or online poker scene, rather than this sort of cash grab and let's get as much of the market as we can by doing whatever we need to do do it, rather than building a healthy ecosystem, going forward for each of the sites. And then
and that's partially because of the environment they're in, right?
Yeah, and it's hard. I think, as I was saying, it's hard for one site to have the ecology's best interest in mind when their competitors don't. Right, so we have this one site who's acting, they're lowering rake, they're doing whatever, the different things that is going to make it a good ecosystem for years to come. And meanwhile, the other sites that they're competing with just kind of take advantage.
I don't know. I think that's the sites who are willing to have the players' interest in mind and think long term. Even if the players don't realize what the difference is, they're going to naturally gravitate to that.
Right.
Their money's going to last longer at those sites. They're going to get more enjoyment out of it. They're going to get a little bonus here and there that they didn't expect. So yeah, it's short-sighted of the ones who aren't doing that, but it's also, they're not incentivized to do anything else because they could literally get shut down tomorrow like the Lodge did. Right?
Yeah. That's so true. That's going to wrap up our two-part series on sort of the online poker, the online poker player and what they look for and what we can do to improve their experience. We're going to take some different looks at different aspects of the industry going forward. But those are two fantastic interviews that we were lucky enough to have join us and talk about their experience. So appreciate both Jamie and Soheb for doing that. And we will talk to you soon.
Very good. Cheers.